So I guess first let's introduce the competition. Um, some of you have been present in the previous live workshops where we had Mr. Nicholas Benavides, and now we have his father, Mr. Nestor Benavides, who is the president of the board for the competition. And first, let's introduce the competition. So the Blue Ocean Competition is the world's largest high school entrepreneurship competition, with the prize money ranging from $250 to $1,000 for our winners. And there's not only one way to win. There are various categories that you can win in. So like, for example, the top 3 winners, the school with the most applicants, the best social pitch, and it goes on. And the winners consist of international applicants. So you're competing in a pool and you're participating in a pool of, participants from all around the world, which is very impressive for your college applications as well. And additionally, for the first time this year, we're offering internship opportunities for winners this year. So make sure to stay tuned till the end to learn more about that, as well as our new early bird opportunity program. So we can go next slide. So let's introduce our panel. Today's live workshop, as I mentioned, will be featuring the president of the board for the competition, Mr. Nestor Benavides. So Mr. Benavides, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
I'll do that when I start. I'm good.
Sounds good. And then next, I'll be handling the slides for the competition. And so if we go to the next slide, Ishan Vanjara. I'm a past participant and a current Blue Ocean Competition student executive committee member. And within the committee, I primarily work on the high school outreach program, as well as the training for that. And as well as some of the new developments that we'll be rolling out very soon and we'll be presenting in our next webinars as well. And these can include the YouTube Alumni Spotlight series, as well as our very own Blue Ocean TikTok, which is our new form of social media that we're excited to try out. And as a participant of this competition, I've learned so much about being an entrepreneur and what it means to, take a business idea and turn it into a working solution for a unique marketplace, which is what Blue Ocean Strategy teaches you. So, yeah, I guess next slide. And today's agenda includes a presentation by Mr. Benavides, followed by a Q&A session by him. And specifically, we'll be learning about the process of brainstorming and identifying a problem that's worth solving, especially in the Blue Ocean headspace. And then we'll give you all the opportunity to meet the other participants and sort of form teams in a live activity in breakout rooms. And we'll give you some resources that you can use towards the end of the slide presentation to stay on track with creating your pitch. So Mr. Benavides, if you'd like to proceed with your presentation, I believe you have screen sharing abilities.
Thank you, Isham. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So I appreciate Zanaya, Dr. Renée, who runs the competition as our executive director. And my passion is, folks like Isham, who are, young, bright, up and coming people that are going to change the world, right, in business and otherwise. And I think that, you learn a lot from this competition, and I love that there's students are a big part of the planning and the organizing. So I appreciate all the time you spend on this, Ishan. So hopefully you can you see my screen now?
Yeah, I can see.
Is it in presentation mode? No.
No, it's not.
How about now?
Yep, perfect.
Wonderful. So, like Ishan said, my name is Nestor Benavides. It was my son that started this competition 10 years ago today, which is crazy. And I really am very excited to be a part of it still. Yes, it looks good on your resume. Yes, you'll learn a little bit about business and about creating new ideas. But the reason that I'm involved is because I think that the things that you learn, if you take this exercise and this competition to heart, have the potential to change your life and to in some way change the world. And it captures everything. It captures imagination. It captures idea development. It captures business. So I appreciate you guys being a part of the competition. I hope you get a lot out of this. My objective today was to try to do two things. To one, help you understand how to tackle this competition that you've signed up for in terms of how to generate the ideas and and develop the opportunity. I'm not going to get into granular level of detail, but my email is on the last slide, and I certainly welcome questions that will take us more specific. But again, I want to show you hopefully how this competition is really a lot more than a competition, and hopefully get you more excited about your participation and the time you spend on it. So I love that this is about creating new ideas, and you can think about it as a school project, or you can think of it as an opportunity to just think about, what do you dream about, right? Where does your mind go, right? What are the things that you see in the world that need to be addressed, that need to be made better? Or what are the ideas that you have that you want to bring forward? And this competition is trying to find those and put them down in a way that we can compare them, and we can encourage more and more people to be thinking in that way. I do believe that our lives really become as wonderful as our dreams. To the extent that we're able to dream about something, we're able to create it. So the whole competition is built around the Blue Ocean strategy, which started as a business strategy, but really is a strategy to create bigger, better ideas and bring them to life, whether it's in for-profit business, not-for-profit business. And I also think that the Blue Ocean ideas apply to life, right? And to students, and to how do you make your life different and better? How do you make yourself in school, in high school, in college, when you go there, in business, how do you make yourself stand out and bring unique value in an even bigger way? One of the things that my son was able to do was go to Stanford University. And when I went to visit him the first time at Parents Weekends, I saw Dr. Tina Seelig present on her book called Insight Out. And so I'm going to use that book as a kind of backdrop for the conversation today of how do you conceive an idea into a business concept. Her thought was, what's the difference between science and art? Right? When we think about business, we tend to immediately go to science or mathematics. And we always talk about, okay, are you left-brained or right-brained? But at the end of the day, life requires us to have both things, right? The ability to think quantitatively and mathematically, as well as the ability to conceive and create. And so what we're trying to do within this competition, and what business requires and life requires, is that you have the ability to get your head around both. And I absolutely believe that everybody has the ability to do that, but too often we identify ourselves as one or the other. So what Dr. Tina Seelig was trying to do is to say, how do we make creativity into more of a science? And she came up with these 4 steps, which I'll talk to, and I'll relate them back to Blue Ocean and to the competition: imagination, creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship. With respect to imagination, the idea that everything begins by our ability to envision that which doesn't yet exist, right? Specific to this competition and to business, I think it's about, what problem is it that you're passionate about solving, right? Or sometimes the first thing that comes to mind is the solution, right? You come up with an idea for a solution that you're passionate about creating. I worked with a company that developed wraparound behind the ear warmers. I should have brought one with me, but essentially it was earmuffs wrapped around the back of the head. And the whole idea started when my friend and one of the founders was walking across a cold field, and his ears were really cold, but he didn't like to wear hats because it made his hair messy. Not a problem that I have. So he decided to create this wrap around the back ear warmer because he identified a problem and then found a solution, right? And he built that into a $50 million company over the next 5 years, right? So every great business, every great idea, and every person that's won the competition or even entered the competition, the better that you are clear on envisioning what's the problem that you see in the world that needs to be solved, or what's the idea that keeps coming to your head that that really needs to be brought into the world. And if you have an idea, spend a minute to go back and say, okay, why is this a great idea? What problem is it solving? So in terms of imagination, think, what's the problem? What's the idea? I love the fact that looking at something doesn't necessarily mean seeing it, right? There's so many things, so many businesses out there that you know, you look at it and it feels like it's already been solved, right? So many times, people don't get into business because there's nothing else I could do there, and then somebody comes up with a new thought that completely transforms that business, right? And so, really, at the heart of envisioning is curiosity, right? Everything is interesting if you approach it with an attitude of curiosity. So, where does your mind go? What things do you like? And I would encourage you in the competition to find a problem or a solution within a world that you like. It's so much more interesting to study, to work, and to spend your time doing something that interests you, right? So, step one, where do you spend your time? What are you interested in? What do you read about? And part of that step is then within that world, is there a problem you want to solve? Is there a solution that you're really passionate about bringing and making real? So that's the first step. What's this problem? What's the solution that I want to start working on? Then the second step is creativity, right? Applying imagination to address that problem or to create more solutions, right? And I'm going to go a little bit more into this. But the idea there is brainstorming, right? Brainstorming, I think, is the single most important point of creativity and early stage business development, idea development. Brainstorm, right? And when you brainstorm, I think we all know a couple of things, but brainstorming is the ability. There's things that say before you start anything, right? You should come up with 50 different ideas about how to solve it, right? Especially if you're coming up with a business idea, right? So even if you start with an idea, I'd love to, if he started with, okay, I want to keep my ears warm behind my head. Maybe his first idea was to create a band that wrapped around his head, right? But then brainstorming, how else could I possibly solve this problem, right? Where else and what other industry and what other need are there solutions, right? Thinking laterally on other places, where's there a really cool way to do something, and then can I bring it back in here? But in the brainstorming process, you don't want to criticize it. You don't want to evaluate it. You don't want to, and it's great to brainstorm with other people, right? It actually is really, really important, right? To say, okay, we're just going to start thinking about this problem, and let's just start throwing out different ideas. And for the process of brainstorming, there are no bad ideas. Write down everything. If it's silly, if it's overstated, if it's impossible, write it down. Write it down, write it down. And I would tell you, in this kind of process, come up with 100 ideas. Come up with 100 ways to solution. And even if you're really, really excited about an individual idea and that's where you start, give yourself the opportunity to say, okay, that's my idea. What problem is it solving? And then get a couple of friends together and say, okay, now let's attack that problem one more time. If this is the problem I'm trying to solve, right? If my ears are cold and I'm trying to solve that, how do I solve it, right? Allow for people to give their opinions, right? Capture 100 of them, right? Allow yourself to be free in your brain and associate everything you can with that problem. And I think it becomes more interesting, again, if when you're doing that, you have a real curiosity for the problem that you're solving. If you don't care about the problem, it's much harder to come up with ideas. If you really care about the problem, it's a lot easier. The companies that are motivated to make the world a better place, to make meaning, are the companies that make a difference. They are the companies that succeed. And I think you can almost say the people, right? The people that are motivated to make the world a better place, to make meaning, are the people that make a difference. They are the people that succeed, right? So it's got to mean something for it to be worthwhile. The crux of motivation is figuring out how to tap into it. And at the end of the day, internal motivation, right? What interests you is much more powerful than anything that your teacher could ever assign you. So, all right. So now we've identified a problem or identified a solution. And now we've expanded it. We've expanded that single solution into 50 plus, or we've identified 50 different ways to solve that problem. And so now we need to start converging, right? And when you start converging and you start putting criteria to it, which is an important part, then you're talking about the process of innovation, right? Applying creativity to then develop unique ideas, right? And again, in this competition, in business, in life, it's the unique idea. It's the idea that in a different and valuable way solves the problem better than the rest, right? Differently than the rest. Because there's benefits with each different way of solving it. So, all right, now we've got 150 to 100 new ideas. So now we need to converge them. So what's the criteria that you're going to develop? Come up with some simple, ideally no more than 3, but maybe it's 5. Okay, so now if I've got, and I'll stay with the metaphor of the earworms. Okay, so now the criteria may be fashion, right? Is it going to look? How's it going to look, right? The idea may be, I want it to be for both men and women, right? So you come up with a couple of criteria, like what's going to make this valuable, right? What makes it valuable to the user? And then based on that criteria, you look at your 100 and say, okay, these 3 are crazy. These 5. So you start converging onto fewer ideas based on some criteria, and the criteria should be based on the user, right? The person that's going to use that idea, person you're building this for, right? What will make this idea valuable? Come up with a criteria that, and then evaluate those 50 or 100 quickly in that and bring them down, right? So then you've got a couple of ideas. And I think the single biggest component of innovation, right, of developing your idea into the presentation, into the detail of what's going to work, is to test and iterate. And the best way to test and iterate is to go ask the people that know more about that space or are going to be using that product, right? You can create a simple prototype. You can create a 1-page kind of description in a really simple way of what you're talking about, and then go talk to folks, right? Go see what's out in the market and test the idea. Okay, this wouldn't work because, right? I don't like the way that looks. It's going to be really, really hard to produce. Okay, that's the right idea, but let's add something to it, right? Or it's a great idea, but you have to take pieces away, right? So don't fall in love with any single point along this process, right? Too often I see people fail at product development, at business development, at company development, because they fall in love with something. When you fall in love with something, you stop iterating it, right? You stop listening to what the customers and the clients are saying. So within this competition, when you come up with an idea, take the idea, even if you only iterate it once, but ask people that this idea will be relevant to. If this existed, what would you think? What would you like about it? What would you not like about it? What would you wish that it did more? What do you wish that it didn't do? Right? How much do you think it should cost? Right? And then based on all of that, come back and then brainstorm again. Right? But really, really important not to just develop things in your own brain, but to go out and test them against people that know, people that will use them, and against competition, what's in the market. All right, so now we have, I really like this, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but in the process of innovation, there is focus, right? Focus as a noun, meaning versus focus as a verb. Focus in terms of selecting the right thing versus doing the right thing. And if you don't select the right thing and you're not doing the right thing, you get almost nothing done, right? If you select the wrong thing, if you just fall in love with the wrong idea in the right market, you're going to work really, really hard and it still won't work. So you want to get some feedback to make sure you're working on an idea that is really, really relevant to folks. And then you want to, as you execute, keep working on it to make sure we get a lot of productivity. So what's the problem? What's the solution you're solving? Come up with lots of ways for that solution to work. Then based on a couple of criteria, come down with 1 or 2 or 3 ideas and go test them, right? And one thing I didn't mention of the testing is if you can come up with 2 or 3 different ideas from within your solution set, and then go ask people about 2 or 3 things, then you get much, much better feedback about your idea, right? Because if you only ask people about one thing, they may say, okay, I love that. If you ask them about 2 or 3 things, they say, oh, wow, of those 3, I really, really love number 1. I would never use number 3, right? So it gives you comparison points. So ideally in that testing and iterating, do it with a couple of ideas as you fine tune your presentation. And the blue ocean tools that are out there, the strategic value map and those, they fall very much in this process of innovation. They help you there compare your ideas against what else is in the market. They help you between the creative and the innovative process, especially to identify what are the ways that we want to make this different, and then how do I compare my idea against the things that are out there, right? And then the last thing is entrepreneurship, right? In these first three steps, you really have just been conceiving, ideas, right? Things that exist in your brain, not in the real world. Once you get into innovation, you start making that idea more real, right? You may create a prototype. You're starting to define it. So now it's not just in your head. In this process of innovation, now you're putting it down on paper and you're giving it definition, but still in a theoretical paper. It's really between innovation and entrepreneurship where you're making that idea real, right? So in your presentation, as you're doing it, think about, as you talk about the business part of it, it's about taking that idea and making it real. So what do you need to know when you make something real? Number one, how do I make it, right? How much is it going to cost to make it? Where am I going to make it? What materials is it going to require, right? Or what technology is it going to require? And then once I make it, how am I going to sell it? And who am I going to sell it to? Right? That's going to be really important in terms of putting detail around your presentation as you go to market. And then we don't go deep into this, but the idea of how would I do this profitably, right? Because at the end of the day, profit is like oxygen. And if once you come up with an idea, if you can't execute it profitably, then you can do a nonprofit world, which is absolutely fine. But then the idea still needs to be interesting enough that people are going to want to contribute to it. So how do I do it profitably, or how do I do it well enough that people are going to want to contribute money to it to make it happen, right? Those are all the thoughts as you start to talk about entrepreneurship, bringing your idea to life. I love that inspiration, in my opinion, my definition is inspiration is the belief that better is possible, right? And this whole process of the blue ocean competition, right, of business creation is about building ideas that solve things in a better way, right? To give more value to people, to help them either live with more comfort or live more safely, or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. So to me, at the heart of this whole thing, at the heart of business, at the heart of great success is, what am I doing that's making better possible? So starting with a problem or a solution, expanding it into lots of different forms that could actually make it better. Then with a little bit of criteria, boiling it down to a couple and testing and iterating it, using the tools from the Blue Ocean strategy, and then giving a little thought to how do I make it real? How do I make it? How do I sell it? And then how do I do that in a way that is profitable? Dr. Tinosulides calls this thing the whole invention cycle. And there are more tactical details as to how to do this. And maybe I'll talk to Ishan and we can have another session on, okay, I like this, but then how do I actually put this down on paper? How are ways to prototype? How could I ask questions to test it? We can go through those things. But I think what's most important is that you see the big picture, right? That you are inventing something as part of this competition, and you're learning about the steps to create something that is solving a real problem in a better way, in a different way, that's bringing value to the world, and it applies to you as well. So I think that it applies to the competition, it applies to business, it applies to school and how you think about, applying for college. It applies to when you get to college and how you execute the projects that you're going to be doing in college and in business and in life. I love this little poem. I don't know who the author was, but somebody shared it with me once. Choose a wish, find a dream, pick a wishing star. Let your hopes and spirits soar high and free and far. Reach for the unreachable, stretch to touch the sky. Keep no dream you treasure is too far away or high. Believe in the impossible, then work and try and do. For only those who dare to dream can make a dream come true. This whole competition is about, what are your dreams in life? What are your dreams in business? What's your idea today that you're gonna bring to life through this presentation? And imagine doing better, making the world a better place, and then enjoying the success of that. Do you think you can change the world? I believe you will. And I think the fact that you've signed up for this competition is a sign that you're interested in doing better. Do it deliberately. And I wish you the best of luck. And I appreciate you being here. That's what I've got, Mr. Isham.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that presentation. And I'm sure a lot of people have some questions about that, those concepts, the invention cycle, as well as I'm sure some questions about the logistics of the competition. So I think if Dr. Z, if you could share your screen again, our next slide is just some frequently asked questions about the competition, and then we'll open it up to some of the audience for any burning questions they might have. So, yeah, I guess, yeah, so as that loads, I think, yeah, one of the major questions we've been asked from a lot of participants as well as teachers is there a way to contact the competition directly for mentorship and advice, and are students tied to that?
Are you asking me, Ishan? Or
yeah, Mr. Benavides.
So I may need Dr. Munir or your help on this one. So the best way to contact, what's the email that we use to contact the competition? Is it Blue Ocean?
Yeah, so the committee at blueoceancompetition.org. And generally, like, we're starting a new system where participants can reach out to the committee at blueoceancompetition.org, and I can put that in the chat later, where we'll like engage our big Blue Ocean network. We'll have based on our availability, have the executive committee members help out, as well as some alumni who can help out based on their experience. So please don't hesitate to reach out through that email. And that's a lot of questions. That's one of the major questions we get. Like, is there anything directly help we can get from the competition to help with our pitch?
So, yes, that's great. Nestor, first of all, let me thank you for such an insightful presentation. And let me just make one point here. So let's go through these basic questions. And in the meantime, we would like the participants to come up with questions for Mr. Benavides. And then Ishan would be happy to read out those questions from the chat, or you can just raise your hand and unmute yourself and ask the question yourself as well. Just wanted to make that point. Ishan, over to you. Sorry for interrupting.
So, yeah, and I would say also, Ishan, you may have a couple different questions. And one of the cool things about the competition is we have this group of ambassadors, right, of student ambassadors, some of which have participated in the competition before. We have this group of teachers that are joining the competition, and I think are going to be a really, really valuable group to be learning from, both in their own schools and then part of this whole network. And then obviously you have Dr. Munir and the staff behind her to help you. So I think there are a couple of different ways. I would start with the email that Isam is going to share on the chat. But let us know where you are. We're trying to build a network, and we really want this to, whether you have questions about business, about your specific presentation, or more tactically or administratively about the competition, ask them into that email, and we'll get back to you.
Awesome. Sounds great. Yeah, I just put the email in the chat. So anyone who's here, just take note of that email. That would be great. And I guess this is one of the questions I have, Mr. Benavides, and we've also, this is sort of from the, from the executive committee as well. How vital is the commitment of the executive committee to the organization's success? And I guess more so to that point, how geared towards students is this competition historically? Like, how important is the prospect of being student-led to this competition?
So I think it's about 1,000% important. Really, I don't think Dr. Munir needs to learn anything else about business. She's already an expert. And I know that we can all be learning. But the point being, we're not doing this for ourselves. This is not profit. We're not doing this to raise any funds. We are doing this exclusively to engage and encourage students to think about business. In my mind, there's so many negative connotations to business and to entrepreneurship. My own mind, I think Elon Musk is brilliant. Right? I think he's the Benjamin Franklin of our time. And politically and in the world today, people that create those kind of things, there's a lot of negative just connotations with business. And one of the things I love about this competition is that it's trying to get students to see that business is an amazing thing, and everything that we enjoy in life comes because somebody had an idea somewhere that they brought to life, either through a for-profit or a nonprofit. And we're trying to just help students do that. And in my opinion, Ishan, you and the other folks in the committee, we want to keep giving you guys as much influence, power to run this as possible. The competition is getting bigger and bigger. We now have, 3,000 plus students registering. So we need to give you guys a little bit of support. But our goal is to make this, as close to 100% student led as possible.
Awesome. That sounds great. And that gives a lot of motivation to the participants in this meeting. Yeah. Oh yeah, and Dr. Z just asked a question. So if I could just say that, switching back to your presentation, you have been involved with the competition for 10 years. Can you share some examples of the best ideas you've seen in the competition in the past years?
You're putting me on the spot.
Dr. Z.
I am getting older and my brain is really struggling to find it. But along the way, the one last year, which was amazing, is somebody actually had an idea of how to possibly take blood and convert blood to from one type to another that would help to provide support for people that needed blood. And they actually went into great depth about that. There's, truly, I am amazed and humbled by the kinds of ideas that students have brought forth. There was one that was put out there that had a way to recharge electric cars in motion by putting magnets inside the road, so that as electric cars drove, you come up with a tool that would actually charge the cars as you went. So theoretically, cars would never have to stop as they drove. You never have to stop to charge. There's been simpler ones, but in countries with that are more economically challenged, we're coming up with a application to a shoe that would allow you to use the shoe for soccer as a cleat, and then potentially take it off and use it more, on pavement, so that children that only had one kind of shoe could possibly, have better, be able to participate better or differently in sports without having to buy more shoes. Right. So literally last year I looked at 600 different competitions, 600 different submissions, and I literally looked at all of them. And there's a lot that are kind of digital. There's a lot of that are applications, like apps, like smartphone apps. There's a lot that are nonprofit about ways that we can, clean the world or promote social volunteering. There's been a lot of those, which are pretty amazing. And I tend to be a little bit biased towards the things that you can touch and feel, because that's been my world most of my life. But tremendous ideas across the board. Go into YouTube and look at the top 10 finalists for the last couple of years. Extremely impressive. And unfortunately, my memory is not great.
That's awesome. Yeah, and the diversity of ideas in the competition is something a lot of the participants should note down. And to that point in the invention cycle, I think we have an audience question before I move on to something else. So Siddharth Nori asks, does the entrepreneurship part of the invention cycle happen in the Blue Ocean competition or outside the Blue Ocean competition?
So that's a great question. And it absolutely happens outside of the competition. But we're working really hard to try to assist with that more than we have in the past, right? The reality is that people participating in this are in high school. So the vast majority of people that participate in this are going to college and aren't in a position where they're really going to want to start the idea. That's for the majority of people. Now, there are some ideas that have been brought forward that are really, really specific, where some people have done a lot of work on it. We had an idea a couple of years ago, which was for prescription eyeglasses, and the idea of milling glasses, so you didn't have to get a new pair of glasses every time, which is pretty awesome, right? You don't reuse the frame or the glasses. So, and in that one, I'm pretty sure the students were already investment. So we have a small percentage of our ideas where the students have taken it way beyond just creating a presentation and have created prototypes and are starting to go. So the entrepreneurship process starts with the competition. In most cases, it really is more of an exercise, a thinking exercise. I'm hopeful that at some point in the future, a lot of these students will come back to these ideas and find some, either use them as a foundation for something that they do afterwards or to kind of pick them and go. But we are working on ways, and I don't want to share anything yet because nothing is official, but we are working on ways for students that are interested in pursuing this and trying to bring their business to life to support them more than we have and to really help them fan those flames. And as you guys know, a lot of the coolest things that you guys use, whether it be Facebook, which I know the youth doesn't use, but Snapchat, et cetera, a lot of those ideas were developed by kids in college, right? Dell Computers was developed by kids in college, right? So even while you're in college, if you have an idea you're really passionate about, go for it. The Blue Ocean Competition is going to start to do more to help you bring it to life.
Awesome, thank you. And we're getting some more questions as well. So one question we got asked is, oftentimes students have many ideas and find it very difficult to focus on just one. And I know that's part of your creativity, part of the investment cycle. So what advice do you have for students about this?
So that's a great question. I think it is absolutely critical to converge to a single idea for the presentation. I think the best way to do this is two things, right? What I described first is talk to people that are going to use this product or this service and ask them what's most important to them, right? And so from that, come up with a criteria set, right? Does it have to be inexpensive? Does it have to be accessible 24 hours a day? Like, what are the things that make the idea most important to the people that are going to use it? Then use that as a criteria to differentiate the ideas that you have. So talking to people to come up with the criteria, but I think it's really, really important that you use an objective method, especially if you have a couple ideas that are similar or not. But objective method that's driven by client input, in my opinion, is the most important way to select. And you need to get to one because it takes a lot of effort to develop one, and I think developing more than one becomes unrealistic. And last thought there is, in the real world, you pick one and then you start to run with that, and while keeping your antennas up. And if you need to modify that one, you will over time. So don't commit to one in the real life and then never change course. Commit to one, take the next step, keep listening, keep iterating, and at the end of the day, you're following the needs of the users.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. And another question we're getting is pretty loaded one. Can your idea be really wild and require a lot of funding for it to be real? And if we want to create an app, do we have to code the actual app or just explain how it would work if it was coded or made? And can our idea be a movement to encourage people to donate to a nonprofit, or should it be an app? Pretty loaded question.
It's great. It's a great question. It touches on one of the really trickiest parts of the competition, right? So let's do a hypothetical, right? We've had one that was a little bit like this, where someone says, invent a battery that never runs out of energy, right? Or invent a machine that turns seawater into regular water, right? So that's a wild idea, right? And if the only thing you give us is that, then that's not going to move very far, right? Because I think what we're looking for is we don't just want the idea. We want the ability for this to become a business, right? So the entire technology can't be a complete figure it out. What do I mean by that? So you could potentially, like the idea of the magnets in the road that I said about charging a car. Right now, nothing like that exists. But you're working with within the world of physics, right? So if you put magnets next to each other, then you can create electricity, right? So I think that's probably the boundary. Is it needs to be within the boundaries of physics or science as we understand it. You don't have to develop the technology by any means. You don't have to develop the app or the code. Most people do not. But things like you can create some visuals of here's what the app would look like, right? You could just do that even on PowerPoint or on a different, so you can create visuals. So I think it's really important to create some kind of prototype, whether it's two-dimensional on paper or if it's something you can touch and feel, that's great. You don't need to create the idea. You don't need to define the technology that gets you there. You just need to think about it enough that in the judge's mind, it's in the possible range set, not in the impossible range set. I hope that helps. And that is a little bit of a gray area, but we use a lot of judges, and at the end of the day, it's, you know, there's a subjectivity, but impossible technology that doesn't exist can work as long as it's all within the physics and the science that we know today, and that there's components of that technology that exist in other places that could be reapplied and used. And that, again, the judges will make a decision as to the feasibility. And one of the items on the rubric for this is feasibility. So if everything else is amazing and the feasibility is a little lower, you can still do very, very well in the competition. If you have a fantastic, if you have a very, very feasible idea that's 100% known how you're going to solve it, but isn't really different, then that's not good either. So you're playing with this balance of, to be innovative, to be creative, you got to push on the boundaries, but it can't be turning salt water into water with no more definition than that. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah.
And you can absolutely, there's been a lot of ideas in the nonprofit space. So any idea, again, the devil's in the detail. So you need to make it specific. What nonprofit are you trying to raise money for? How are you going to raise money in a different way, right? How are you bringing that to life? But sure, encouraging money to donate to a nonprofit is absolutely okay, but build the detail to who are you doing that for? How are you doing it differently? How would it work? And the uniqueness of your idea will be what drives your score.
Got it. And we also have a couple more questions. Is it better for students to team up for submitting pitches, or is it better to participate individually? And what would make a good team? And do you have advice for student teams? How should they overcome differences between the consensus they have about the idea and the invention cycle?
So wonderful questions. I'm a big fan of work together for a couple of reasons. Number one, all our students are busy, and it takes, I think, a fair amount of work in order to create a really strong pitch. So you're limited time. We are absolutely stronger together, right? So how do you choose a team, and why is a team important? If you pick somebody that has a little bit more of a business mind, is a little bit more the mathematics person or the business person, you pick somebody that maybe more the kind of person that would use the service, right? You pick somebody that maybe knows the technology side, right? So in the world, right, in college and school, working with people is how we move the world forward. So I'm a big, big fan. Try to choose a team. Life is more fun. This project is more fun if you're working with other people and it becomes a common objective than if you're staying up all night trying to figure it out. So big fan of teaming up.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And I know that was one of the problems that we faced for our company when our business, when we pitched the Blue Ocean, when I was a participant. And exactly what you said, having, getting a group of your friends is probably the best way. And, getting someone who's good at the financial side, who's good at the design and technology side, and someone who's good with just overall, using the Blue Ocean tools and strategy.
And potentially friends, potentially not friends, but people that know the parts that you need. And by the way, one of the parts of the question was, how do you make decisions if people disagree? That is life, right? Like that is absolutely learning those things and working those things to that project. Like those are the skills that you need everywhere you go. So I think it's not easy. It's much easier if you're just doing it by yourself, but you'll create a better product if you struggle through the difference of opinion.
Definitely. And we do have one last question from the participant. This person is asking, I was wondering if there will be points deducted if submitting an app, if we're submitting an app rather than a physical product, the app I'm creating focuses more on social value rather than profit. However, once the app develops a larger scale, I can sell it for profit to numerous organizations. I will still present the business aspect for my app, but it's definitely focused on the profit. Thank you so much for your time and presentation today.
Thank you, guys. So there's absolutely no points deducted, right? One of the challenging things about this competition, I think, for the judges is that you're comparing, we had an amazing product last year that was, I don't remember the detail, but it was like a hands touch, you could touch product, right? And you have these technology and these applications, and you have these services, right? So we're comparing multiple things. Possibly as the competition evolves, we will have categories. In today's world, as digital as we are, when you ask students to think, they tend to think in digital ways, and that is kind of where people's brains are. So there's absolutely no points deducted for whatever your idea is. We're going to measure, again, one of the components of the rubric is market size, right? So if you develop a phenomenal product that's perfect for people that are taller than 7 feet or shorter than 3, that product's not going to have as big market size as others. So market size is one of the equations, but then the judges will take it into account. So a lot of apps. I wouldn't worry about the vehicle that brings the solution to the world. Focus more on solving a big problem, bringing a big solution to the world, and in whatever way you do that, we will look forward to receiving it.
Sounds great. And I think now that there are no more audience questions, we'll just move on to the the remaining questions I have on the slide. So I guess just to this is more of like a housekeeping for and logistics for the competition. Regarding the submission process, are there any outstanding things to do to complete before submitting the video pitch? And just I guess I'll just say you have to all participants must complete the Blue Ocean Strategy mini course after they register for the competition in order to be able to be qualified to be judged for the competition. And so this is something that we're going to be also pushing towards our social media as well. So just make sure that your group completes the Blue Ocean Strategy mini course. And like Mr. Benavides said, we're gonna work together and make sure that we have more webinars that are geared towards the content aspect of the invention cycle and incorporating the Blue Ocean strategy and tools. So stay tuned for those webinars, which will really help you with your business as well. And a couple of the last questions for Mr. Benavides. What's an example of a current company employing the Blue Ocean strategy, and potentially how do they do that?
Yeah. So I think that the whole Blue Ocean concept came up with Dr. Mauborgne and Dr. Kim. Were looking for what were the common components of really, really successful companies, and they kind of deduced the Blue Ocean strategy from that. So to me, in the biggest sense, right, companies like Uber to me is an amazing example of the Blue Ocean principles, right? Where Uber reduced the cost of execution, right? I mean, they solved so many different problems in such an amazing way that most typically, right, you had to own all these cars, right, and manage all these people. And so Uber to me is an amazing example of reducing your cost and increasing your value in an absolutely exponential way. But I don't know whether the founders of Uber read the Blue Ocean strategy. So I think that great businesses are following Blue Ocean principles. And that's how the entire Blue Ocean strategy book came to be. On a much more tactical side, we have one of our very esteemed board members, Frank Scalese. He's built his business. He's a very, very successful business in finance using the Blue Ocean strategy. And he's deliberately applied it. In my business, we've grown our business, and I run a company doing engineering services. And we've grown from $14 million to $160 million in the last 10 years. And it was absolutely the Blue Ocean book that kind of gave me ideas on how we should be presenting ourselves to the world and how we should be. And through that book, we ended up buying a company that helped us change our value proposition, and more to that story than we have time to discuss. But I think people are taking the book now and taking companies and then trying to transform them, creating strategies for their companies using the Blue Ocean strategy. So short story, to my opinion, is I would say every company that's successful is either applying the principles of Blue Ocean strategy without really knowing them, or in many cases, trying to apply the Blue Ocean strategy and the Blue Ocean tools to existing businesses, and then trying to create a better trajectory forward through the use of those tools. So my company, my colleague, Frank Scalesi, who's on the board with me, who runs a very, very successful business on a tactical business that you'd never heard of. And then I would look around, I would look at Uber, right? I would look at Under Armour, right? I would look at almost any company that's got great success today, and you can kind of pull back the Blue Ocean principles from it.
Sounds good. And I think our last question, and then we'll go into breakout rooms quickly, is how do we incorporate the concept of differentiation when identifying a problem worth solving and brainstorming? And how does that concept of differentiation, how do you think of that when you're in the invention cycle?
So I think that I'm a big believer that everything can be done better, right? And so I think that the concept of differentiation is always at the heart of developing strategy, right? You're trying to do it better, which requires you to do it differently. So in my opinion, strategic planning is differentiation planning, right? So it's differentiation that's targeted towards value to the client, which is what makes it strategic, right? So I think all strategic planning is trying to drive relevant differentiation. And the last part of your question, how does it apply to the cycles? To me, like things like the strategic canvas, almost all the tools that I see within the Blue Ocean tools are actually trying to, they're a tool that's actually helping you to see the differentiation and to drive the differentiation in a way that's valuable to the company and to the end user. So I believe all the tools are actually trying to give you a way to quantify differentiation, right? And it's applying thinking to it that's saying, don't just do it differently, do it differently in a way that adds value to the client. And that's where the success comes from.
Sounds good. That makes a lot of sense. And Mr. Benavides, thank you so much for your awesome presentation and answering all these questions from the audience as well as from our slides. So just as a reminder, our next workshop will be an interview with past participants on unique avenues to winning, and this is going to be on December 18th. And here you'll be able to learn directly from the perspective of someone who participated in the competition and went through the video pitch and submission process. So it'll be very helpful. And you can also connect with us on Instagram at the Blue Ocean Competition and tell us what you want to see next. And as well as your committee at blueoceancompetition.org email. And next, a little bit about the ambassadors program, which Mr. Benavides touched upon. So the next slide is about So this is an incredible new initiative that we've started, and this is open to all high school students and previous participants and alumni. And you can sign up today. So receive your ambassador kit, and the goal is to spread the word about the Blue Ocean competition. And you can do this in any way possible. And one example is, having a club in your school explaining, presenting the Blue Ocean competition to your club, and as well as posting on Instagram and other social media channels. And you can win $100 for every 500 ambassador points you win. And the specifics about the points are on our website and on the ambassador page of our website. And you can also win titles such as Blue Ocean Global Student Ambassador of the Year, and get access to the Blue Ocean Practical Introduction online course, and also a 1-year subscription to the Blue Ocean Studio, which is a creative workspace for developing your Blue Ocean ideas. So that really helps. There's no reason you shouldn't sign up. And if you scan the QR code, you'll be directed to the link where you can sign up on the website. And here's a really effective timeline that, based on our webinar today, what you can start with and how you can end. And so you should finalize your team formation and identifying a problem based on the invention cycle by December 18th or 19th, which is in a week. And after that, you should spend a month on idea development and incorporation of the Blue Ocean strategy tools in your development process. And then the Blue Ocean strategy mini course will be of immense support in this process. And if you can also work on prototyping to visualize the attributes of your product, which is not necessary for the pitch, but it can always help.
Is this on the website?
So this timeline is not on the website, but this is just a suggested timeline that you guys can take.
I think this is really helpful for people to have some sense.
Yeah,
great
awesome.
idea. We will get put it there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's awesome, because having this suggested timeline and then being able to incorporate your pitches in this month of mid-December to end January, and then building your pitch and submitting it early, just for the peace of mind, because there's no advantage to submitting earlier than February 18th. But if you submit it early, it just gives you a nice peace of mind, rather than submitting it February 18th at 5 p.m. wherever you're located, and then encountering technical issues, which is always a nightmare. But if you want, you could take a screenshot of this timeline or take a picture, and we'll also put it on the website.
Yeah, we should definitely strongly suggest that people get it in a minimum of 24 hours in advance so that they can confirm that it's been received.
100%.
Yeah.
So I guess the next slide. So I guess our goodbye to you. That's all, folks. So if you have any other questions, you can connect with us at Blue Ocean Competition, and don't hesitate to email us, as we said before, at this email, committee@blueoceancompetition.org. We'll have a system where we can help you and answer any questions you may have about your pitch. So if you have any questions, be sure to reach out on that email. So thank you so much, and we hope to see you all next time.